19th, and we had no work sessions. We also have any scheduled, Nick, for 10th meeting?
Yep, Peter, the work session will be December 8th, and we have Kravick Drive.
Okay.
And just let everybody know that the meeting is being recorded. Sorry to interrupt, Peter.
No, that's okay. I'm glad you did. That's okay. And we streamed on the website, the town website. So thank you all for coming. I think we have a full group here. Can I have a vote on accepting the minutes?
I'll move. Steve?
Nathan will second.
Steve? Nathan seconds. All in favor by name?
Wait, aye.
Nathan, aye.
Steve, aye.
Aye, Leif.
Kathy, I.
Kevin, I.
Thank you. Doug's not on, I guess. The first item is the
Is Joe on?
Ted. Pardon?
Doug just got on.
Doug. Hi, Doug.
Is Joe on?
Doug, vote on the minutes. No, I haven't seen it.
Okay.
It was going to be on. I talked to him yesterday.
Okay. We'll keep going.
Okay. The New York Convention office. We had the screening. I have. We talked about this. Anybody on? Mr. Goodfellow on? Approve the plan.
Didn't we tell them they didn't need to be on?
And dated.
Yes, I believe we did state that they didn't need to come. That that we would be ready to approve. Yes. So that's why they're not here.
What was the date of the plan, Dick?
The plans are dated November 17th, 2020.
Okay, dated November 17th, 2020, which is an amendment to the existing site plan approval for this site with a specific finding that the plan herein is revision to the site plan as approved by the board on October 8th, 2020, and is for the sole purpose of the modification of the rooftop, including the screening of equipment thereon. Further, except as specifically modified there. The existing site plan approved for this project dated October 8th, 2020 is not otherwise modified and is in full force and effect, including all findings and conditions therein. And this approval is for the plans and other submitted documents that have been signed by the planning board chairperson, and the applicant requires that all of the work shown be completed by the applicant in order for a certificate of occupancy of compliance to be issued. Any proposed changes, additions, deletions, scope of work, or materials from the site plan documents are not approved and are subject to further site plan pursuant to the Town of DeWitt Code 192-1. That's the motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Nate. Who spoke, Nathan or Kathy?
Kathy and Leif both.
Kathy.
Okay, Kathy, second. All in favor, signify by name.
Steve,
Nathan,
aye. Leif, aye.
Kathy, I.
Doug, aye.
Kevin, I.
Kevin, Doug?
Yeah, Kevin, I said aye.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, Peter, so maybe you can't hear me.
And Doug?
I did say aye.
Oh, okay.
There's some bad audio tonight.
Okay, apologize. Okay, you hear me now? Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. It's just a little bit scratchy.
Yeah, you're just breaking up a bunch. You may have a bad connection there.
Okay. Do my best. All right, the next item is the Bob at the Business Center. I think we received all the plans of proposed installation of a chain link fence in the site modification industrial district. Nick or Kathy, do you want to put us where we are after Bob's latest submission? Or excuse me, Nick or Stephanie?
I'd be happy to walk you through some of the changes.
Please.
Yep. Okay, so from the last submission, from the last meeting, there was an expansion to the gravel area that we had originally reviewed, which was this parcel over here, and it was proposed to join up to the existing area with a reorganization of all the rest of the gravel lot, which showed some curb cut, or not curb cuts, but just gravel access ways throughout, and just this proposes a really substantial cleanup to the site by showing a neat corner of the gravel now extending out to the front of the road to connect to the North Midler Ave. There will be substantial landscape buffering. There is now a guardrail, a wooden guardrail that is shown along the edge of this, just to keep this edge of gravel neat and contained within this area. All the grading is going to be pitching downwards toward the stormwater pond area, so this will keep it neat and keep this as a permanent edge. There's about a couple of trees that are added within this this alley along the private driveway, as well as the buffering between the commercial site on the opposite side. And these are now moved to the outside of the fence, which is something that we've been discussing in the past. The last change that's been sort of on the docket for the past few weeks is the gravel area is now located on the outside of this drainage area. So the drain tile and the 4-to-1 slope that sort of pitches down from the CXX rail, this is all lawn. And that is the exhaustive list of all the items that we've been following on this project. And are there any questions from board members?
What's the guardrail look like?
I'll scroll to that detail.
This is Bob Ava. Can you hear me?
Hi, Bob. We can hear you.
Hi. Yeah, the guardrail, it's a wooden guardrail. It's 6x6 treated posts, and it's only up a couple of feet high, and you know, it's a 2x10 bolted into the vertical post. Again, it's more of a visual thing that's going to really be a guardrail, or it's going to get hit.
Right.
But it will separate the grass area from the gravel area.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? No other questions?
I think we're good.
We're good. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the plan as presented with the following findings. The board has reviewed the resolution of June 10th, 2020, which is delivered without comment or modification. No significant adverse inter-community or countywide implications. This plan was sent by the town of DeWitt to the city of Syracuse, which is adjacent to this property, and the city respond with any comments. This approval is for the plans and other submitted documents, site plan documents that have been signed by the planning board chairperson and the applicant, and requires that all of the work shown be completed by the applicant in order for a certificate of occupancy or compliance be issued. Any proposed changes, additions, deletions of the scope of work or materials from the site plan documents are not approved and are subject to further site plan review pursuant to the town of DeWitt code section 192-122. That's the motion. Can I have a second, please?
Steve, second. Wait,
Thank
aye.
you.
Nathan, I.
Thank you.
Steve,
Joe,
aye.
I.
Kathy, I.
I need to interrupt for 1
Peter,
minute if I
Peter,
can.
aye.
Can everyone hear me? So, Joe, I'm going to ask that that you not vote. We have Kevin logged in as attending, so we have 7 members. So you came in late, so we've got Joanne, we've got Kevin, and he
That's fine. I'll just
I'm
listen
sorry,
in.
I think I hit my mute.
Okay,
Did you hear that? Thanks, Joe.
that's all right.
Yep, I'll just listen in.
Got it. The next 2 items.
But wait,
We're not done the
One
vote.
is,
Kevin, aye.
oh,
Doug, aye.
Okay, unanimously, thank you.
Thank you. Do I come in to sign the approved documents tomorrow?
Yes, you could speak, Dick.
Bob, I'll coordinate with you for the signing of the plans.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks.
Okay, we have the ARSM canopy and loading dock canopy site modifications, existing building on Manlius Center Road. Who do we have for the applicant?
Hi, this is Alex Wisniewski. I'm representing the owner as far as the parking lot expansion. I believe there's some representatives from the tenant here as well tonight.
Yes, hi, this is
Okay.
Paige Parham. I am representing Amazon here tonight.
Okay, okay. I don't know who should I direct this to, but just to start this, I'm confused, and I think the board would like on a interior renovation permit that there was a little over an acre of disturbance on a grass area in a very area that had been previously very pervious and with gravel.
This is Mike Tormey. I'm the owner of the property. I attempted to clean it up, and it was my fault. I thought I was to stay under an acre. I didn't need a permit, but apologize. That was my fault.
You didn't need a permit for under an acre. Jamie, would you just comment on that? I just want to be sure that the board understands the significance of what's happening.
Well, the only thing I would say about that is that site plan approval, anytime there's work done on a site, a commercial site, it does require site plan approval, and there were changes. So that's why you're here, because of exterior changes to the site. And thank you for noting. The acre requirement doesn't have anything to do, that has to do more with a stormwater management issue, but not the rules of the planning board. And the code, the town code, not the rules of the planning board, the town code. So thank you for mentioning that. And that's why we're here.
It bears on the coverage. Yep. Okay.
Yes.
So they're moving forward on the interior, and that permit is ongoing. And so I'd like to, who's going to speak on behalf of what the recommended changes are you presenting?
Paige, would you like to start off by just discussing your operation and the intentions that you have as far as the loading dock and expanded canopy, and I can discuss the site issues?
Yeah, absolutely, guys. So I represent Amazon from a pre-construction standpoint. We went into a lease agreement with Mike Tormey, who is on the call, who just spoke, with the understanding that we would lease the interior space of the building, make some tenant improvements to the interior of the building, and that is one permit that we have currently. We then applied for a secondary permit to add what I would call like a modular building that adds 3 dock doors to the existing site. And part of that permit is also us extending the existing canopy that is currently over the dock doors now. And that's just to provide safety and shelter for our Amazon associates as they load and unload the docks. So our goal there is to utilize all 8 dock doors once we get the permit approved, if that's what the board will do, so that we can basically do night operations here. So our trucks will come in at night. Our line hauls will unload into the building, and then within a couple of hours, we will have box trucks where we load the packages back in for final mile delivery. So that's kind of a short summary of it. But I believe the majority of the work here is going to be handled by Michael Tormey, and Alex is his civil engineer and can explain the parking lot detail that is being handled by the owner.
Yeah, again, this is Alex Wisniewski.
Thank you for that.
I missed
Yeah.
that, I'm sorry.
I thank Paige for summary.
Thanks. Thanks, Paige. Alex Wisniewski, site engineer again. If you look at the image on your screen there, that's the existing conditions of the site. And as Mr. Weber mentioned there, the area that's shown in orange was previously a lawn area. We do have a survey that shows a long time ago there was some additional gravel areas in there, and I guess, but the long story short is that new area out there was being prepped to expand this parking area as part of the lease agreement when the stop work order was issued. That gravel area actually is slightly less than an acre currently, and the new proposed plan before you tonight also keeps not just the new asphalt, but the total disturbance under 1 acre. The issue with that, and Stephanie, if you could, yeah, that's a good one. This shows ideally what Amazon would like to do. It's showing this dock extension on the south side of the building. That would allow them to use an existing overhead door on that wall. The dock extension itself provides an additional 3 bays of loading, and the balance of what you see in red is essentially their long haul trucks, your longer tractor trailers, and there's room for 12 of those vehicles to park in addition to the 3 loading spaces that you see associated with the dock extension. And then the blue images are their smaller box trucks, and there's been space provided for 39 of those vehicles. And then what you see in, I'll call it yellow, is essentially employee parking to the tune of about, I think there's 40 plus spaces for employee parking. The intention here is to kind of segregate the employee parking and access to the southern wall of the building. We're trying to segregate that from the delivery vehicles and parking of the vehicles. So that's driving the layout of the parking. The positioning of the dockzilla, the dock extension is really dictating the location of that existing overhead door. So that kind of starts to drive the site layout. Now, this plan proposes about 0.9 acres of additional pavement. The issue with that, in looking at the code, is in this industrial district, you have an 80% lot coverage limitation. In this 0.9 acres would bring us up to about 85% lot coverage. If you, just to clarify, this site actually consists of 2 separate parcels. There's the larger 7.76 acre piece that fronts on North Manlius. And then there's another roughly 0.4 of an acre piece that includes the driveway access out to Butternut Drive. So if you look solely at the 7.8 acre parcel, this additional 0.9 acres would bring us up to about 85% coverage, which would necessitate a variance. If Mr. Tormey were to re-subdivide and combine his 2 parcels, he'd create essentially an 8.1 acre parcel, and we would be about 82.5% coverage if you looked at the 2 parcels in totality. So in either case, that would necessitate a variance If a variance wasn't an achievable goal, the 80% coverage limitation would limit us to about a half an acre of additional impervious area on the single site, or again, if we combine the two parcels, it would yield us another approximately 0.7 acres before we go over that 80% coverage threshold. So I guess we're to some extent looking for direction from the planning board. If you feel, if this is something that would be agreeable and you would support the variance, we would probably proceed with that application, obviously, before coming back to your board with the final engineered design drawings. So I guess for starters, I think that's the big issue, is the need for the variance that this current layout mandates. And if there is a reasonable shot at that, I think we would attempt to pursue that variance with the ZBA.
Well, I think there's another matter here as well. I think we're looking at a traffic study. This is a pretty intense use of the property, so I don't think we can take any recommending action on a variance until we have a traffic study completed.
Okay. And that's understandable.
The other thing in regard to the traffic study and combining the two parcels to get to the approximately 81%, that seems to me in this tight lot that this is going to be a prerequisite almost of going forward. Is that something the owner is amenable to?
Yes. Yeah, combining the two properties, yeah, I have no problem in that. Yeah, that's
It would
okay.
still require a variance, even with 82%, it would still require a variance.
1%. Correct. It makes it more comfortable relative to coverage, though. How does the rest of the board feel about combining the two? And
I'm also going to want to see, what stormwater, if anything, stormwater mitigation is happening. I mean, if we're getting up with so much impervious surface on the site, what they're going to be doing to mitigate some of that.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out, thanks for that, Nate. The site is partially within the floodplain associated with Butternut Creek, and fortunately, actually, this area of the site is the highest portion of the site and is partially outside of that floodplain. But recognizing we're in a flood-sensitive area, is what your town engineer might want to see in terms of stormwater provisions. And is that something I could direct my questions to Mark Parrish on those issues?
correct.
Is Mark part of this? Mark, are you on this?
He's not on tonight,
Apparently he's not.
No, okay.
but
No,
he
okay.
looked at
If
this on
I had
Tuesday.
known, we would have asked him. I apologize. But
No worries. I can follow up with him tomorrow to try to understand what he thinks would be appropriate from a stormwater approach. We are, the intent here is to keep the total disturbance under an acre so as not to need to go through the New York State speedies permit requirements, obviously. So with that in mind, I would consult with Mark to see what he thinks is appropriate from the town standpoint.
okay, Mark would be he's our consultant. He would take the lead, yes.
Thanks.
What about, have you done anything relative to the other tenants and their needs? Because this is not a singular situation. You have the Liverpool Pool and Spa and the Steve with their own trucks and transportation issues.
In reference to discussing it, how it's going to affect them.
Is anybody, is it needing to be looked synergistically, not as just an Amazon project?
Well, I suppose I assumed more that they would use the front entrance and Amazon would use the back entrance. So that's probably how I didn't think it'd have much of an effect on them.
And well, Mike, if I could add,
I can't hear exactly what.
Mike, if I could add, I think a traffic study would start to define better the traffic patterns in and out of the site, and if there's impacts to those the other operations. But if you are familiar with the site, you can see on most days there's not a lot of current traffic, and not quite a bit of the parking is unused presently on that site. If that assuages any concerns.
Well, I'm more
I think we would
concerned with
still
the
need
Center
the
Road.
break. We would still need the breakdown of the tenant usage, like how much is warehouse and how much is, office within the various tenants.
Understood. Now, in looking at your code, the majority of the building is used as warehouse. You've got Liverpool Pool and Spa uses about 21,000. The total building is about 110,000 square feet. Liverpool Pool and Spa's got about 21,000 for their office and showroom. Stevens Office Supply has about 13,500 square feet, and UPS has about 12,000 square feet, and there's about 10,000 square feet that's currently vacant. And then Amazon intends to rent approximately 35,000 square feet on the south portion of the building. And then obviously, as we progress and fine tune and develop these plans, I can obviously include site data on the site plan that gives the appropriate breakdowns of those uses and respective parking needs, et cetera.
Right. Thank you.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Alex, I have a question. This is Andy Warden. I think there is a lot of groundwork to make on this, but I think one of the questions that I would have too is, you mentioned that this is kind of primarily a night operation where the long haul trucks would be coming in at night and offloading, which begs another question as far as lighting for this operation in the evening. But also, what are the hours of operation as far as, when and how many of those trucks will be coming in at night? And at what time does it flip and they start doing the straight back deliveries? And how long does that go to? And the approximate number of vehicles as well on that. I know a lot of that will be addressed with the traffic report, but if you can give us an idea on that, I think that would help answer some questions a lot of people have as well.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Paige, can you respond to that question?
Yes, absolutely. So right now our operation hours generally start around midnight and go on until about 6 a.m. Excuse me. That's the majority of the time you're going to see traffic coming in and out of this site. And yes, you're correct, Director Warden. This will be addressed in our traffic study. As far as the counts on how many, we kind of ramp up to that. So at the beginning when we only have, like right now, we don't have the Dockzilla extension or the dock extension. So we only have 3 available dock doors. So you're going to see significantly less traffic until we have planning and zoning approval to add the additional dock doors and be able to use those. So I believe right now it looks like our line haul counts. I was just trying to look at our dock door study here. It looks like, apologies guys, I had this right in front of me. I may need to come back to you on that. I mean, I guess I think part of it is that we don't really have a study on what we're going to use for just 3 dock doors right now. Once we have 8 dock doors, we'll address that in our traffic study. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Paige, I had a question relating to the Dockzilla, the portable. Is this something that in my 15, 16 years, I've never seen a portable dock with this kind of activity. Is a more permanent structure feasible for your plans?
I mean, it could be feasible. We have not gone that route because currently we usually lease out spaces for a 5-year period of time. And I believe this lease is, again, under that 5-year period. When we have situations like this, we usually go, and I don't necessarily want to use the term portable. It's more of a modular, meaning that it's going to be built in a conditioned warehouse and then put together on the site. But it will be it will be permanent in the sense that it's not going to blow away like a trailer, I guess is what I'm going for. We do this a lot for Amazon.
I understand.
Yeah, does that make sense?
But from a building code point of view, this is being considered a permanent structure, correct?
I believe so. It is structurally tied into the building. Yes.
In terms of, foundations and type of construction and all that stuff.
I have our architect on the call. I believe the answer is yes there. Katie, do you want to speak to that? They are in charge of our permitting and architecture and PE plans.
Yeah, so the doxilla is, I wouldn't consider it a permanent structure. There aren't foundations for it. It's not structurally tied to the building. It's compliant for the codes as far as accessibility, things like that.
Actually, Katie, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Ed, are you able to, I've got our construction manager too. He's actually on site and going to be building this. I think he'd be better to address that question. Ed, are you able to get off mute? Let's see if I can get him off mute here. Apologies, he is stuck on mute. I apologize, guys. He's chiming me. He says he can't get off mute, but yes, we are gonna structurally tie this built into the building. So I apologize, guys.
No, this is a concept review. So
okay,
we're just asking the questions that we'll want to have answers down the road.
Absolutely, absolutely, and we do have a PE that's. Yeah, absolutely. We do have a PE who's designed this, who is working with our construction team. Sorry, Ed is trying to chime in here, but yes.
Paige, are you able to have Ed jump back on the call here? I had muted everybody earlier just because there's a lot of feedback.
He is trying to. He got disconnected. He does say it has steel base footers.
Okay.
So I'm sorry. I'm reading as we're chiming.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
What
yeah, he
does that
says he
mean?
must have got disconnected. Hopefully he can join again. But again, we can get these questions all together, guys, and respond to this. I know that we need to get this together. We need to get a traffic study together. So I will definitely make sure that we get you guys a response to this.
Peter, that was a comment about the footers being steel. It's a steel base footer. I think that's the clarification you're looking for.
Well, that's a steel support, but the footer is what the steel would rest on. And if they're going to rest it on gravel, that's not really, it seems to be, would require some engineered type of footing.
Well, I guess Steve, my question originated from this idea of permanent versus temporary and what the board is reviewing in terms of temporary versus permanent.
Oh, it looks like Ed was able to jump back on. I'm sorry to interrupt. Ed, can you speak to that? Are you back on?
Hey, everyone. I apologize. I somehow got kicked off the meeting, so I just got back on. What was the question, Paige?
What kind of footing you'll have under the posts supporting your doxilla?
There, from what I recall seeing on the details from Doxilla, they had structural steel like piers, foundation supports that would get tied to the macadam. I believe
so it's not going on gravel, it's going on asphalt?
Yes, that's correct. I believe the current macadam it'll be sitting on that's currently there.
Andy, is that code, does that meet our code?
Yeah, it's basically viewed at almost similarly to portable stage material. It looks like it's probably an adjustable paddle type foot that can be raised or lowered to level out the ramp as needed. So it'll have to be secured, but that's pretty common.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Any other questions from other board members?
Is this something that we normally allow, Andy? What I would view as a temporary solution for a 5-year period?
I think that's really up to the board, Steve, as a whole to decide on how they want to do that. If this is a 5-year lease, they may have some issues with our climate up here, but it's something that could be approved on a short-term basis.
Okay, thank you, Andy.
Yep.
Anybody else have comments? Again, we look forward to the traffic study and the different, the weigh in on the part of O'Brien Gear and Mark with the storm water main.
Well, I think the only other thing they'll be looking for down the road here is the
Very
truck.
informative. We'll move to this as we get different information.
Go ahead, Leif.
Yeah, go ahead, Leif.
Yeah, the other thing that just catches my eye when we look at the site plan layout there is the tightness of the truck turning radius is shown along the edge of the parking, that green guy there, and up to the right. As that, those motions show a lot of having to, block traffic and parking in that top right there. And, what really is the intent there? Because that's just not all those cars we see parked there right now can't park there if there's ever going to be a truck motion there.
Right. I mean, that's got to go and be accounted into the parking count and layout.
And striping programs and all that program in that area.
There was another comment made about a canopy. Have we seen anything on the canopy?
There's no
Yes,
elevation.
I can speak to the first question there. On the tight turning radiuses, again, all of our operations happen overnight. So we don't plan on, sorry, I'm getting an echo. But we don't plan on blocking any parking. The parking that you see that is currently in that green, we will be blacking that out. That won't be it parking anymore. So those cars will not be parked there, obviously, whenever we're in operations. So I hope that answers that question.
But you will account for that parking elsewhere on site.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so that just goes to the overall site count. Just when you're showing that, making sure that you're accounting for whatever spots you're relocating.
Yeah, will do.
I think this is a significant change to the property, and we always look for opportunities to enhance properties when such a significant change happens like this. So I'd like to look at opportunities for enhanced landscaping and lighting and generally sprucing up the property.
And what's the benefit to the public view?
Yeah. The fence is in disrepair. The green space is not kept well. But this has been very helpful. Anybody else from the board want to weigh in? Okay. Thank you, Amazon and consultants, and we appreciate the introduction, and we look forward to further submissions.
Peter,
I apologize. This is Paige from Amazon. If it's appropriate, I do have one more question.
Sure.
So currently we have an interior building permit that we just completed construction on that is, I don't want to say completely unrelated, but a completely separate permit than what we're discussing here tonight. As of last week, we had passed all of our inspections. We've completed all of the punch items that we received from the reviewer or the inspectors that came out to the site, but we have not yet been granted a TCO so that we can begin operations. Is there any update, especially from you, Andy, on what to expect as far as granting TCO on that particular permit?
Yes, Paige, thanks for bringing it up.
Sure.
We're very close to issuing that. I would probably say by the end of the day tomorrow, we will have something for you. We're having our planning board attorney review that just to make sure that the conditional letter that goes out is what we want and what we're looking for in a time frame for this process as well as completing it.
Okay, thank you. We'll look forward to that update. And I'm not sure if you have my email address, but if you could include me on that update, I'll be happy to send you an email and give you my email address so I can make sure I'm included on those updates.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Really appreciate all your all's help tonight.
Sure.
And just if I can just kind of
Andy.
plot. if I could just plot out the steps forward here, would it next be appropriate then to get a traffic study completed, and then if that study supports this plan, I guess the next step would be to then make application for variance before we ultimately would come back to you for the site plan consideration?
I think what you need to do is look at all these comments as a package, and certainly the traffic study is a threshold issue, but the site circulation and everything is going to weigh into whether this board would positively recommend on the variance.
Don't they first need to achieve a subdivision?
Well, that would, yes, that's all
part of the package
as well. But I think everything needs to just keep going on a parallel track. So it needs to come back here with some good progress after the traffic study, so that the site plan can be looked at.
Understood.
That's right. And if I could just jump in here. So there will be a list of planning board comments that summarizes all the discussion topics, and also some standard references to the design guidelines in the town, which refer to all the expectations of the developments. For instance, there's a lot of areas where the asphalt is striped out. We would expect that those be transitioned to granite curbed islands with landscaping. That's just one point that we'll reference. If there's any proposal to look at directional signage to help streamline the flow of traffic through the site, there'll be a request to have that submitted in the future. There will be a list of drawings that we'll expect to see, elevations of the building where you're going to have the canopy attached. If there is a transition in the materials for the doxilla to a more permanent structure, that should also be integrated into the architectural design. And of course, we'll be covering drainage concerns, floodplain concerns, and that covers it. And we'll be tracking the subdivision and the ZBA throughout that document as well. So it will be a comprehensive list of all the things that we'll be tracking throughout this course of approval.
Stephanie, when will that be sent to the applicants?
Tomorrow.
Stephanie, when will that be sent out?
So I have the list pretty well buttoned up. I just have to make a couple quick notes corresponding to the conversation that we've had tonight. It'll be ready for on tomorrow morning. Did you get that?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. All right, thank you all. We have next item, the discussion regarding the Campuswood Drive and site modifications. Who do we have representing Campuswood Drive?
This is Terry Horse from Terry Horse Landscape Architecture, and I think the owner should be on as well. Mike, I don't know, are you here, Mike? Okay, all right, I don't know if he's here or if he's having problems. But
what's his last name? I got Michael T.
I don't think that's him. It should be
No,
Joe.
Michael Stormy.
Yep.
Do you happen to have his phone number? Because I've muted a couple callers. Maybe I can unmute and see who's here.
Okay. Well.
Oh, I'm not able to unmute. Only they can. I apologize.
Okay, Terry.
Yeah.
I think that we'll just.
Okay. Wait. I'm sorry.
Give you a lay of the land. No, it's okay. What I wanted to start with is we knew this would take a lot of due diligence, and there's been Steve and several others that have worked hard on this. Nick, Andy, and Jamie. First thing that I wanted to address was the parking, and something came to light just this afternoon. And Jamie, could you bring us up to date on where that shared parking agreement is, the document?
So, well, let me talk. There's two things that we know and found out. One is that the parking count that was approved for the daycare center, and it was for this lot only, was 20 parking spaces. Okay. And there is, and we have the documentation for that, thanks to Nick. So with respect to that, we do have a provision in our code that provides that if there's a finding of a use being not increasing in intensity, then the 20 spaces is a good count, and it was a legally established count with respect to the daycare center. So now we are talking about an office use, and maybe it's you know, that if it's not as intense a use, we can use that.
Okay.
We did find out that last year, the owners of these two lots entered into a reciprocal easement agreement for shared parking. That has not been approved by this board, but it is in place. So if there's going to be parking on an adjacent lot, then we would, from a planning board standpoint, have to determine that the other lot isn't using spaces, you know, that lot number 1 isn't using spaces that lot number 2 uses, and we can do that analysis. So it's a private agreement at this point, but it certainly can be made part of this resolution if that's the route that this board wants to go. And it would be a parking analysis.
So my understanding is that, thank you, Jamie, that currently with a low impact of the office that they're planning and approximately needing 14 or 15 spots, that they would stand alone in the shared agreement. But that would, we'd have to have also a count from the Make-A-Wish folks as to their level of needs, so that we know that there's enough space both ways.
Right, if that's the route that we go. If we go the 20,
we may not need it.
Excuse me.
Okay,
Jamie?
that's very helpful.
Jamie?
Yes.
What is the parking requirement for daycare center? I had seen something about 1 space per 300 square feet. Is that part of the code, or is that just something that was developed for this specific project?
Steve, so it was filed under other commercial enterprise, which is a more general ratio it's 1 to 300.
Okay. So the 1 to 300 is not applicable to the proposed office use.
It wouldn't be applicable per se, but because we have the provision in our code about intensity of use, there can be a finding about whether the use of the daycare versus the use of this office is an intensity of use. If there's a determination by this board, and we're not asking you to make it tonight, but if there is a finding that there is not an increased intensity of use, then the legally established parking can remain. So the counts that were relevant then or are relevant now aren't, as long as it's legally established, 20.
But inherent in the zoning is that an office use is at least twice as intensive as a daycare use.
That's a discussion. And also, I know that we've also found that some of our parking requirements are higher than maybe are necessary. That's something that we've been looking at as a board over time, I think. So I'm not advocating for it one way or the other. I'm just giving you the facts.
Okay, thank you.
No,
Okay.
I wanted to take away, so we have the parking, and that's will require further discussion, but we're much more knowledgeable now than. Second was the landscaping, which Stephanie, would you give a summary of your professional view of the landscaping package as presented?
All right. Well, I'd like Terry to walk through all the improvements that she's added to the plans here, and she's probably more familiar with the condition of the existing plants and what the strategy was to replace.
Okay. So can I just add on that parking agreement real quick? The agreement is with the property to the north, not the Make-A-Wish property. So it's that larger parcel with the large parking lot and 5009 Campus Wood, not the Make-A-Wish in this property. So that there's a lot more parking on that site than than we would have available at Make-A-Wish.
Okay.
So for the landscaping, we're basically putting in all new, foundation plantings, turning all the area that was once the surfacing for the playground back into lawn around the patio, which will be a porous patio. And then we added some more foundation plantings along, I think that would be the south side of the building as well. So, in the center, that little center turnaround as well. We removed and replaced all those plantings. I think we're keeping, the larger trees that are around the edges. Those little cloud-shaped trees are the ones that are existing that we're keeping. We're adding another larger tree up over by the parking lot in that green space there as well.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, excellent.
Any
And this
questions
is,
on landscaping?
yeah, this is fairly comprehensive, and I think it's a really nice complement to the existing just park-like atmosphere here.
Thank you. And we did add a bike rack. You're not showing it on there, but we did. That was one of your comments, Stephanie. And I think we're going to propose to replace that catch basin in the corner instead of try to repair it on the Make-A-Wish property.
Terry, would you like to comment on the patio
On the patio?
proposal? Yes.
So the patio is to the back of the building, where it'll be overlooking, the ponds. And it's a permeable paver. It's the pavers. If you went out there, there's a palette of pavers. It's that paver. It'll just be set in a permeable base. And it's just, squaring off that corner, the building corner. And there's no additional fencing or anything to the patio.
Terry, is there a maintenance plan in place to care for the permeable pavers long-term?
Yes, and we did add notes to the updated set of drawings we did today that reflect that.
Thank you. So I think that leads us, if I'm not mistaken, to our famous question having to do with the stone and the painting that occurred.
Yes.
Have all the other
Anybody,
board members gone out to
board
see the
member-
building?
This is Kevin. I've seen it.
This is Kathy. I saw it last week.
Leif, have you seen it?
I saw it.
I
Doug?
did not make it up.
No, Steve, I have not seen it in person.
Okay. I want to get the different board members' perspective on the painting and their position on whether it needs to be reverted back to the brick or left the same or some other treatment.
Have we seen the materials, like physically? I know we can't touch and see them, but have we seen the actual colors or anything other than the rendering?
We dropped off physical samples, well, one set of physical samples to the planning department when we submitted, and we submitted like the paint chip colors as part of the initial package. So that should have been handed out.
Has anybody, Stephanie, I guess this is directed toward you. I worked with the designer at EDR back at the time in the late 80s when this was done, because he was biding his time between a project that I was managing at Syracuse University and this Pioneer Office Park. Was there any kind of a set of internal design guidelines to this project? Have you been able to find anything out in the EDR archives?
No, I haven't.
The designer at the time, his name was Mike Moore. I'm sure Joanne would probably remember him.
We can look, but I'm not sure what we would have because that that type of guidance would probably be on file with the town of DeWitt if it were binding in any way. And I can't imagine that we would have something in our files that would provide that level of description.
Not from a
We
landscape.
haven't seen anything.
Right.
I guess my big concern is
Peggy.
that if other buildings in this office park continue to get sold off to independent owners, and people can come in and do whatever they want to these individual buildings, we lose the cohesiveness of what is really one of the nicest office parks around. That's my feeling.
Okay. Leif? Leif, you're muted.
You're muted.
Try that. Oh, there we go. I'm going to second Steve's opinion on this one because it's, you know, you can have a project that's good and it's meant well, and even if the colors are right, but the problem is there's an overlying perception and a theme to this campus, and I'm not all that enthralled with then relying on chasing painters 20 years down the road when somebody wants to change the paint color arbitrarily and it doesn't ever come in front of the board again, and you get a, you know, a mishmash of things that happen, when right now there's a very cohesive, you know, set of design elements out there.
Agreed.
I would agree with that 100%. Nathan?
Yeah, I agree with Leif and Steve's comments.
Doug?
I haven't seen it in person, but what I can say is you don't paint brick. I don't know what this paint material is, but you don't paint brick. It's a maintenance nightmare. So
unless it's inside.
Unless it's inside.
Kathy? Thank you, Doug.
Well, as I said earlier, I didn't think that it looked that bad. I thought it was attractive. I do agree with that thought that then we don't want all the other buildings changed, because then it would be a mishmash.
Yeah, and we just end up with no control.
Right.
Yeah. Kevin?
So I visited the site today, and I think it's Terry. Can you comment? I didn't think the siding was brick. The way it was painted, it looked like it was more of almost like a siding, and then on the mid-level. So is it brick or not?
That is brick. It's just the paint is a brick paint, and it soaks into the brick.
Gotcha.
So that's
I looked at it today. From my perspective, being more of a layman, for me, I could only see that one building at a time, right? So given all the landscaping around it and so forth, I really couldn't see the other buildings to even see it. And for me, the sort of the past, the streams, I've never actually been up there before, the lake. To me, that was more what connected it. And I agree, it's a very nice place, but I'm okay with changing the color.
Joe, are you still on? I mean, this is just a discussion.
Joe, if you're trying to speak, I muted all the callers to reduce background noise early in the call. If that's the case, you might want to hang up and try calling back in.
Okay. So Terry, you've heard the tenor of the board that strongly to go back to brick. I don't know how you're going to do that, but that's the
I would think pressure washing would probably do it.
Well, I'm not an architect, so I don't know, how all these, the paints work on buildings and such. But I was told that it basically soaks into the brick, it permeates into it. So pressure washing will not take it off.
Yeah, we'd have to test it out and see if it will.
Yeah.
I don't think you want to get into a sandblasting. That'll probably mess up the brick.
Yeah, that would, I don't know if pressure washing is going to take it off enough to restore it back to the original condition, let alone, the bottom Can we look at suggesting some other colors that would complement the brick?
Guess you could paint it a brick color.
You could produce the proposals, but I'd like to see some tests done, as Steve suggested. I just hear that it permeates the brick, and I'd like to see somebody get very aggressive on how they could try to return this back to its natural state.
Yeah, well, I'll have to discuss this with the owner, and see how he wants to proceed, and let you and get back to you.
Okay.
Again,
Well,
if I can just throw in a lay comment, is there anything, other design elements that could be corrected or could the brick be partially, unpainted, that could make it palatable and acceptable? It's a question. It's like straight up no opinion on.
I just like to see what they're proposing, other than it can't be done. I'd like to see that we did this section, or we tried to, and here are our options.
I'd like to make a
I think we
suggestion.
could cure this for them. I think that's something.
Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, I'd like to make a suggestion. I think it's tough to look at this building as a whole when we're looking at a picture with a painted building and the old landscaping, and there's no sidewalk or anything there. And I'm hearing all the comments, and I feel the same way, that I think that we lose control if every applicant can go, or every new property owner can go in and paint the buildings. But my feeling is unfortunately what's done is done. And to try to look at renderings and put sample boards of the stone up on the side and everything to make it, look like what it's supposed to be representative. I know the applicant is looking to try to get some of this groundwork done before the weather sets in. And one of my questions to the board would be, what are we able to allow them to do at their own risk as far as putting in the patio and sidewalk? And I think when you see that and you see it against the backdrop of the building, we might get a better representation of what this is going to look like when it's completely done. And I throw that out.
It's not going to change the color of the building, Andy.
What's that?
It's not going to change the color of the building.
Perspective, I think, Steve. I know that's.
I'm fine with the landscaping continuing, but I don't know. If you want to put foundation plantings in, if you're going to be going in and having a pretty intensive effort at removing paint, you can mess up your new landscaping.
Oh, agreed. I would say the landscaping that's not necessarily up against the building, but I think the bigger part of this too would be the sidewalk and patio area, particularly the sidewalk. I think once you see some of the stone might change the perspective of what this building looks like.
I hear that, and I think we should think about it, Andy. I think we need to address the threshold issue of the parking.
Yes.
And resolve that as well, but I hear that.
Okay.
Terry, this is Kathy. I have a question for you. I'm not familiar with this paint that he put on there, but if you can't sandblast it off or whatever, could you put another color on top of that, or would that not work?
I'd have to look into that. That would be, I'd have to talk to them about that.
Okay, if you
I don't know enough about the properties of the paint.
Yeah, I don't either. So if you could ask him that and maybe get some specs on it, and he could turn it back to the original color by painting over this color, perhaps that would be an avenue to explore.
I would like to see a good faith effort on trying to remove this, to see how, going to the company that manufactured the paint and seeing what could be done, and proof that it can't be done. And then we got to look at other options. All right. Well, they wanted, we put them on to give them a 5 or 10 minute. I think we've more than met this threshold. So I appreciate everybody's feedback. Terry, you've got everything you need?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. Thank you for giving us this time as well. So we'll regroup and come up with something.
Thank you. I look forward to it. And we could, Terry,
Yeah.
please advance as we talked earlier on all fronts. I mean, again, I think that nobody was not feeling that you couldn't proceed on the patio or the sidewalk without with your own risk. But the other issue was the parking and everything else. And whatever you have, you could feed to us and we can give you feedback as to whenever we meet.
Okay. All right.
All right. And then I had one other item. Leif talked to me later this afternoon. Leif, do you want to just bring up sort of what we talked to, I don't know who was on the line, who was when we on Tuesday, but we talked about the senior housing, that's to the new shopping town, which lots happened in a couple of days. Would you like to just bring people up to date?
I don't mind if Leif brings people up to date, but I want to make clear on the record that he will be recusing himself from any vote or further discussion on the project.
Yes,
because of his personal involvement. So if we can.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I was officially hired as of last night to do it. So.
Should we adjourn, Jamie? Because it was not an item on the agenda.
Well, it's if Peter wants to bring it up, that's up to him as chair.
Yeah, let's adjourn the meeting as we just had presented with the three agenda items and the one discussion, and then we can just convene with the enlightenment of Leif now that he's involved with the project. But then at that point, he'll have to recuse himself in any further discussion.
Peter, I'll make a motion to adjourn, but I have a question just for scheduling purposes. What are our dates for the next meetings in December? You had said the first, and then I thought I heard Nick say the 8th and the 10th.
Yeah, 8th is the work session and 10th is the agenda meeting. The 10th is the meeting. And historically, we have not had a second meeting in December due to the holiday.
So it would be the 8th and the 10th only. Because if you go the 8th and the 10th, then it would be the 22nd and the 24th, which is Christmas Eve.
Right. I can tell right now I'm not attending.
I know, Steve, you have to come down that chimney.
That's what I was going to say, Kathy.
For some reason, I had it marked in my book as doing it on the 3rd.
We have can I have that be second?
So what's going on? We can't hear you, Peter.
I think that was a motion to adjourn.
Who did that motion?
I started.
I'll second.
Steve, aye.
Nathan, aye.
Leif, aye.
Doug, aye.
Peter, aye. Okay. Meeting's adjourned.
Okay.
Leif, go ahead. Give us a little background on that.